Hey everyone, it's Mike, the finance guy here with some more Excel tricks and tips. Today we're going to look at VLookups and what they're used for, why you'd use them, and how to do them. So this is by far probably the most powerful thing to do in Excel, and everybody has questions on it. So I'm going to teach you guys how to just do them properly. So this is our sample data from previous videos. As you'll notice, and here we're going to do our VLOOKUP. So what we're going to do is we're going to look up the salary for anybody starting with the name Mike, with their first name Mike. So if you look at our list, you'll see that we have a Mike here, and we want to pull back this $15,000. Now, just as an FYI, notice there are two Mikes in here, and this Mike is $17,000. Just a quick heads up that this VLOOKUP formula only works. It's only going to pull back the first record that it finds that matches. And we're looking for the name Mike, so it's only going to pull back the first one. It's only going to pull back this $15,000. That is why a VLOOKUP works so quickly and efficiently, is because once it looks down the line and says, hey, there's my match. I've matched on Mike. Then go and find the equivalent column, and it's going to pull back this number. It does not care or does not even see the second Mike in there. So it will not have anything to do with the $17,000. So this is how we're going to do it. Now, if you look up for my VLOOKUP number 2 video, I will actually show you a certain way using a VLOOKUP in advanced functions, how to actually pull back the second or the third in using a VLOOKUP with other functions. So stay tuned for that, because that's also pretty popular. All right, so let's work on our first VLOOKUP. So let's use the formula, the f of x function wizard that I like to call it. So let's click this, and let's type in VLOOKUP. All right, let's hit OK. And our lookup value is going to be Mike. This will input the results onto the right here as you're going. So if you make a mistake, it'll be pretty obvious here. So table array. Now when they say table array, that's just a fancy way of saying, hey, where do you want me to look? What's my data set? So the data set is going to be this whole section here. So it's going to be first name, last name, department, and salary. Now I could go and drag, highlight everything, or you can even add in spaces onto the right, spaces onto the bottom, but realistically, you don't need that much data. And best practice is there's no reason to make the formula that much larger, because formulas that are larger will do two things. One, it will increase the file size, which, you don't want to do that if there's no reason to. And also, it will slow the formula down. If it only has to look at a small piece of data versus the whole Excel file, it's going to run a lot quicker. So we're only going to select what we need. So we're going to select the first 4 columns and all the way down. So now the column index number. So what this is saying, hey, now that you've selected A through D, this range that we just selected, which column do you want me to look in to find the data that we want to pull back? And looking at this, if we're looking at, okay, I want to pull Mike, I'm looking at first name. So first name is going to be the key here. And I want to pull back the 4th column. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm typing 4 there. And then for this lookup, trust me on this, you will always type in false. There is less than a 1% chance that you will ever need to use a true. If you have to worry about that, message me and we'll work out another way for you. So $15,000 is the salary for Mike. As we, just eyeball, we can tell that's correct up here. Now, very important when doing a VLOOKUP, when I'm looking up Mike or whatever you're looking up, this has to be the leftmost column of the data set that I selected. So let's say, for example, I wanted to look up Wong, which is a last name. It's not in the first name section here. If I did the same formula and I tried to look up Wong, it would not find it here. We turn back an error. So that will not work. So I will show you in a few minutes here how to do that also. All right, and now let's do the same thing. Let's doing it without the wizard now. We're gonna look it up, so type in equals VLOOKUP and then open parentheses. So my lookup value that it's shown down here, this is the same thing as that function wizard was doing. But we're just going to do it this way because it's quicker. But whatever you are comfortable with, feel free to do. So Janine is going to be our lookup value. And then we'll do comma. Your table array, again, is your data set here. So we know it's the same 4 here. Same 4 columns. And then we'll do comma again. Column index number is, again, the 4th column because this is the data set we want. If you try to do 5 and you try to pull bonus back, it would give you an error message because, hey, it's only looking up, it only sees this highlighted group of cells. It doesn't know anything about fifths. This is the 5th row column, 6th column, 7th column. Anything that you put past 4, so over 4, will come back with an error message, unless you change your this section here to expand it. So let's do 4 again, and then we'll get comma, and then we do false again, and then close parentheses, and then $19,000 for Janine, and the first Janine we find is right here, and Janine makes $19,000. So now I just wanted to show you, for example, a VLOOKUP is not case sensitive. So that means it doesn't matter whether it's the Janine, whether it's capital J or lowercase j, proper or non-proper, it does not matter. So it will work. And just if you don't believe me, here you go. We can just drag the formula down using this little, thing on the bottom right, and just left click and drag the bottom down. All right, so there it is. Doesn't matter whether it's uppercase, lowercase, everything works for that. So now let's do the same formula, and let's look it up if we were not looking in the first column. Let's say you wanted to pull something back in the second column. So let's do our equals VLOOKUP, open parentheses again, and let's look up, what we want to look up is Wong. And it doesn't matter how it's spelled, not, again, if there's uppercase or lowercase, because if you notice this Wong is, it's a lowercase w, uppercase O, lowercase n, uppercase g. It's all messed up, but I use that for future videos when we worry about text and formatting and stuff like that. All right, so our table array, instead of our table being this, which is what we're used to in our last examples, we know that this last name Wong is not in this column. It's not going to be in this first name column. So we're not going to do that. We're going to put it in the second column here. So this is going to be our table array. Because, like I said before, very important to remember this. What you're looking up must be in the furthest left possible of your data set. So this is my data set. It's only 3 columns wide now because that's all I really need. So let's do comma, and I want to pull back the 3rd column, which is salary, and false. Comma, false, close parentheses. And this should come back with $19,000. And we look it up, Wong, let's come with $19,000 right here. So again, there's a lot of different ways to do VLOOKUPs. You might be saying, hey, why do I need to do a VLOOKUP when I can just look at someone and say, okay, I can just eyeball and physically see someone that's Mike and how much money they make. Or I can do a find on a sheet and say, okay, hey, which one, you could find a lot quicker than writing a VLOOKUP. But the thing about it is when you have let's say this is only 15 lines here. If you're working with a spreadsheet that is, tens of thousands or even 100,000 lines long, you have a lot of data to look through. And sometimes you may want to look at the first one. Sometimes you may want to look at the second one. So if you're using a find, you're not going to know if you're pulling back the first one, the second one, the third one, what it is. So, and you will be able to drag a formula down. Like if I want to go find here, I have to do the find, and I have to copy and paste it and put the $15,000 here, and then copy Janine's name, then do a find on here, find it, okay, it's $19,000, type it in here. This way, with a formula, you can just drag it down very simply. So this is the way we want to do it. That's the pros and cons of the VLOOKUPs. And now there's one more where I'm taking this a step further now. So now this is something that you'll be able to do in the future. So if you look at more of my videos, you'll see examples of this. So basically, one of my jobs is I monitor reports and change reports every month. And one of the things that I do is I try and be as efficient as possible. When I have to change headings, like these are the headings that I use on. I have like 30 different tabs within one workbook, that I prepare each month. So if I had to go back and change the headings every single month, that would be a lot of useless, non-value added work. So not to mention there would be a big possibility of that I would mess up, because when you're typing in stuff, there's a big chance of fat fingering, miskeying something. Nobody's perfect. Whether you're 99%, you're still 1% wrong. So I don't want to type in, January 30, versus, okay, hey, January has 31 days. So, and have to memorize all that. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I don't claim to be, but, the more I can have Excel work for me, the happier I am to make it more efficient. And if you look at this little data set here I have a little cheat sheet table here that I built, so that all I have to do is change this number 1 here. Once I change that, which is representing the month, once I change this from 1 to 2, you notice how all 3 of these updated the dates. It looks to February 27th, because these are all mixed. These are VLOOKUP formulas. All 3 of these are VLOOKUPs, and they do have a little more higher functions involved. So they have concatenated functions and VLOOKUPs, and that's going to be shown to you later on in my other videos. So make sure you watch those, because it's very powerful. This is just another thing that saves a lot of time using a VLOOKUP. So if I change this to,